Alex Kapila, thank you so much for joining me on this chit chat.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm looking forward to talking to you.
Yes, well, these chats are really very self-indulgent for me because it does allow me to be nosy about people's lives, you know, and also it allows me to put on record, really, my gratitude to people who I've had the privilege of sharing a stage and rehearsal room with, which you don't get to do in ordinary life. You don't often say to people, "Thank you so much for, you know, the times that we've had acting and whatever." So, thank you, Alex.
Thank you. I've never thought of you as someone who is nosy. That's quite surprising.
That's very true. Yes. Well, I think possibly curious would be a better word.
Hmm.
I think yes, you're right. You're right. Yes, yes. So, Alex, it is now. We're kind of. You don't mind? I'll begin with a kind of because I've been doing my research on my guest, on my celebrity guest. I hope you don't mind my calling you that because you are not. One of the things that's very interesting about this is that, you know, when I was talking to Andrew, it's just amazing hearing about things that I wouldn't ordinarily know about. You know, what went into his book and how and stories of its beginning and so on.
Hmm.
So I went onto the public sites about your good self, and I knew you were busy. I had no idea how busy until I looked at it. For example, and perhaps we might start with this, and perhaps because so many of these titles, if we look at your filmography, for example, on and there aren't many people I know who've actually got a filmography on IMBD. Is it IMBD?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, from 2000 in 2016, you're doing The Raid, then you're doing Nurses Who Kill. Sounds fascinating, and that's my bread alarm going off. I Boy in 17, Casting Directors 17, Atonement, which sounds fascinating if it's anything to do with the the book. At the Bar
Yes.
in 18, Hokum in 2020, Parasitus, is that how you say it?
Parasitus.
Parasitus in 2020. In 2020, another reference to that as well. Peter the Penguin, which I remember you Facebooking about. Can you just switch the bread off, my dear? Thanks ever so much. A letter from Ellie, 2018. EU-topia, which sounds brilliant. If that is to do with the EU, then fantastic. Exchange Street, Searching for the Lady of the Lake, The Last Twitch. So we're in 2021, are we now, with Exchange Street?
Mm-hmm.
And then Calling the Tune.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you like to pick out of there? what were any of those about that you remember with fondness and can share?
Oh gosh. Actually, hearing you read them all out was quite nice because I'd forgotten some of them because some of them have been from a while ago.
And could I just say, viewers, both my viewers, because I sometimes get as many as 3 people tuning in, downloading, that I haven't started on your stage work yet. That's all your film. We'll come onto your stage in a minute. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, not at all. Well, I'll talk about Peter the Penguin because that's the one that's sort of getting quite a lot of traction at the moment. So it's directed by a director from Shrewsbury called Andrew Rutter, and he's wonderful to work with, very creative. If you get to watch Peter the Penguin, it's going to be released on a YouTube horror channel in November, and it's doing the circuit on a lot of film festivals at the moment. It's a very odd movie. I play the girlfriend of the main character, and I'm taking him to meet my daughter for the first time. I remember it being quite weird to film because the start of the film is me driving him to my house. I haven't passed my driving test. I failed my driving test 4 times.
Wow.
So I remember we went to Shrewsbury on a Sunday morning. They knew this, of course. So we had liner plates at the back of the car.
Oh, no.
And Chris, who played my partner, he was a really experienced driver. So it was like, fine, you know, he's going to be sitting next to you. But we spent about 3 hours driving around Shrewsbury, doing the same circuit again and again for about 2 minutes worth of film. And there was a really sharp right turn. And I was fine with the rest of it. But every single time I came up to this right turn, I was really panicky and everything went out of the window. So we stopped just before this right turn each time, swapped around. Chris took us round the corner, stopped the car. I went round to the driver's seat again, and then we drove round. So
I hope you've got the outtakes of all that. I hope they're in a bloopers reel.
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I really do think they probably, I think they would be worthwhile watching. So yeah, I remember it with real fondness just for that, but also because it was a really fun movie to do. Cast and crew were great, and yeah, people really seem to be appreciating it as well. It's different. It's really different.
It's so intriguing how strange life is. That, for example, you talk about your driving there. I also failed 4 times, passed on my 5th, and I failed 2 of them in Shrewsbury and passed in Shrewsbury. So I know what you're talking about with the tricky roads.
Absolutely.
I wonder if that's a road I remember called Mile Cop, which you go up and there's a sharp bend at the top of a hill.
Oh gosh. Oh no, I didn't do that. There was a church. That's all I remember. We kept going around a church, and they particularly chose the route as well, thinking. I mean, obviously, I had to think about things like sunlight and etc., and you know how it was going to work for the filming. But they particularly chose a route as well where they thought, well, she can't do anything wrong here. Yeah, you know, it's the joy of filming. There's always something that's unexpected. There's always something that you don't factor in.
Yeah, I'm sure. Now, you said that was in the horror genre. Peter the Penguin. How intriguing. You mustn't give spoilers away, but is there any hint as you can tell us how such an innocuous sounding title has found its way into a horror genre?
I can't, not without. Yeah, I think if I said anything more, it would probably be a spoiler. So yeah, you're just going to have to watch it, I'm afraid.
Fair enough. Certainly will. Now, where did you say? If you don't mind, I'll probably find the link, googling it. But what platform did you say that's coming out on?
I can't remember the name of it. It is apparently the biggest horror channel on YouTube, though. I can't remember what the name is. Horror isn't actually a genre that I watch. I'm too scared to watch horror, so I can't remember the name, unfortunately.
Oh, my daughter will know. She watches horror all the time. Right. Okay. So it's coming out on that. And when is that going to be, Alex?
It's going to be in November.
Oh, we do have long to wait, viewer. Yeah. I'll be a little more modest than my 3 audience. I mean, you will pull a lot of people in. I'll tell you what, Alex. Tell you what. But yes, that's very. Is this the one? Because I know how modest you are, and I didn't find this on your agent's site either, or public information about your good self. Is this the one you got nominated for a prize for?
It is, and I'm not modest in the least. I'm really quite happy to talk about it. I was so chuffed. I'm desperate to get my Oscar and give my speech.
Practice now, then. Consider this a moment where you can thank your cat.
Absolutely, my cat's going to be top of the list. But yes, I did get nominated for the TV Fest Award, which is a Canadian festival. So it was really nice. And, I was joking to everybody, I'm an international actress because it's Canadian Film Festival. So I consider it to be an international nomination. Unfortunately, I didn't win, but I did get runner-up, which was really nice. And what really gave me some joy was the fact that actually David Troughton was nominated in the Best Actor category for the same festival. So I absolutely adore David Troughton. So to that I was nominated for the same festival was really nice.
That's really something, isn't it? Actually, and you can't really agree with that, I suppose, but that is quite something. It really is quite something. What was the category you were nominated in then?
Best actress for me, best
The
actor
best
for him.
actress, and you were
Mm.
runner up.
Yeah, I was one of the runner-up.
Blimey.
I basically got third place.
And see, you are modest. That's immediately downplaying your achievement. And David Troughton was won it in the equivalent male category.
He was nominated for the best actor.
Did he win?
No, he didn't. No.
Even
So
more
again,
similarity then.
I know. It's a Bond. It's obviously yes, it's a Bond. If I ever see David Troughton in town, I might very well go up to him and just say, "Do you realise we were nominated for the same festival?" And he'll probably run a mile, and it's probably wise if he does. But yeah.
I think there's that if I ever heard of one, that is an icebreaker. A schmoozy, starry soiree that you may float through. Or you could interrupt him on stage. Just get up and say at the Swan or something, David, I know I feel your pain. You could say to him.
We could, yeah, we could come together over a drink and drown our sorrows together. And
but this is gosh, this is such a different world, really, because you're in lots of different worlds, aren't you? Really, this film world, and you do some work with non-professional actors, such as. The last thing we were in was another Andrew link there, isn't it? With the Chenchi, if I said that right?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Yes, in the beautiful.
That was how many years ago? 4 or 5 years ago, was it that? No, probably about 3, 4.
Well, the thing with COVID is that everything that happened before COVID seems to have happened in the last century, doesn't it? Actually, so I've absolutely no idea, and I couldn't find it. Well, let's go into your theatre biog. So here we are. Your agency is called Mandy, is that right?
It's one of the casting websites. Yeah.
Oh, right. Oh, I see. Talisman Talent, that's your agent?
Yes.
Okay. So I think that my viewers, should they wish to know, because we don't, as you say, we don't. I haven't gone through them yet, but I think they're generally available. Your presenter show reel and your corporate show reel. That I guess this is how you get work. Is it that that's what people do, is to go and look at what you do? Is it now? It's not Spotlight anymore. It's this sort of thing.
No, it's mainly Spotlight. So I'm on Spotlight, and it's mainly my agent that sort of puts me forward for things on that. And then you've got Mandy as well, which is another casting site. So my agent will put me forward for things on that, and I'll also apply for some things there too. And yeah, it's a case of people obviously look at the headshots first of all, and then if they're interested in what you've done and if you fit the bill, they'll hopefully have a look at your show reels, and fingers crossed you'll get an audition.
Wow. I want to come back to that if you don't mind, and ask you some more about that process. But on the stage side, so viewers, I didn't know how much stage work you'd done. I knew you'd done a lot and where you'd done it. Well, not where you'd done it actually, but here we go. Here's a few things that please feel free to tell us more about. Every single one of these sounds fascinating. So reading from this year, 2021, show called Deep Fakes, and you played Leslie, I think, there. 2021, a piece called The Last Twitch. These are wonderful sounding titles. This is a film, I think, that one, is it? Yeah. Naimal as opposed to Normal. That's your role. And then you in a piece called Humans at Work, and that's 2020. A lot of work in 2019. My goodness me, that was a fruitful year. Empress of Morocco, a show called Blueprints. Parasitus pops up again. What Fatima Did, Alice in Wonderland themed party. uh, and then some commercials. Goodness me, you played a psychiatrist in No Bond So Strong, and that name rings a bell. Min Yu Lin, that rings a bell. Your director there. Snake in the Grass, which I saw, and you were terrific in a very, very disturbing play, I've got to say.
Yeah.
Wow. Community Centre. Then we go back to still in 2019. Gosh, the flipping COVID has affected you professional actors so badly, hasn't it? Tuition Kit. So it sounds like a real momentum here in 2019. The Key Keepers of Kabul. Lots of, and then in 18, I won't do the whole thing because you'll just too but we do have something that you've done for the RSC in 2018. The Attic Theatre you've worked in 18. Some more TV. The Working Class Project, Snagged, BT Global Alliance, sounds like a corporate piece. A Letter from Ellie. All of these are so intriguing. I think some of these will be stage and so. I mean, we can't literally only because there is so much work here. It's impossible. I just would, you know, it would be embarrassing to you. I think if I just listed them all out. But looking back on some of that work, what gives you a sort of, you know, a sense of, gosh, I really, that was quite something. What happened there, you know?
Well, actually, probably the easiest one for me to talk about is the last play I did, which was Descent. That was this summer. And we performed it at the Lampworks, which is a disused factory in the Jewellery Quarter. And it's a play I've been working on for the last 3 or 4 years with a company called Midlands Actors Theatre, which is run by a man called David Allen. And we, as I said, we did R&D on it for about 3 or 4 years. It was the kind of thinking behind it, the inspiration for it was Dante's Divine Comedy. So it was the idea of these characters going through purgatory. And originally there were 3 women and 3 men, and the 3 women were goddesses. And as we went through the R&D, they kind of they metamorphosized a little bit from goddesses to kind of semi-divine status. So we really wanted to infuse them with more human qualities. So I was playing the goddess Inanna, who was sort of representative of the idea of love, and I took inspiration from the idea of Beatrice in from Dante, and sort of thought about her as somebody who was captured in poetry, but probably didn't have very much freedom in herself. And with the piece of Descent, these characters were in a war-torn situation. So the idea was they'd gone through this war situation and then they were finding themselves on this real or metaphoric journey through purgatory. And I sort of took the idea of actually through war, a lot of women found emancipation. They found for the first time they were able to work, for the first time they were able to leave the house. And so it was a really interesting experience developing this character and seeing how she changed through the R&D. We were supposed to perform it before the pandemic. It was going to be on in the summer of 2019, and then things came to a halt, obviously. We did end up doing 1 more day of R&D, and the piece changed actually a fair bit during last 1.5 years. So we had to make some changes in terms of thinking about what might not be happening from a really practical perspective. So the cast was cut down to 4. And also the characters changed. So my character, she lost her divinity completely. I know, exactly. I've made the writer promise that when we do the sequel, which he is working on, Ascent, that I will become fully divine.
Quite right.
Absolutely. But the character I played, she was still called Inanna, but she was a refugee from a war-torn country who was basically taken into the sex trade. And it was a 1-hour show that we did, as I said, in this disused factory. And we only had limited audiences because it was a promenade production. We were taking people around, and obviously with COVID restrictions, we had to manage it in a certain way. But I think particularly because of the pandemic, actually, some of the themes that may not have come through as strongly if we'd done the play before really came out this time round. And I think people had a better understanding, perhaps, of what it might be like to live in that kind of situation because of what we've been through. It was, just this July. So again, theatres just reopening, and the joy that was there in terms of people being able to come and see a show was wonderful. Being able to perform in it was wonderful. But also it was cathartic as well. I think, for all of us, there were things that kind of came out through the process. So I really enjoyed it, and we just had such a good time, the cast and crew, even though the play itself was quite harrowing. We really enjoyed working together, so I loved doing it. Really loved it.
And did you have a decent? The pictures looked amazing on your. Shame to say I didn't see it, but what you posted was just astonishing, gorgeous and frightening and haunting all at the same time. The whole design was exquisite, it seemed.
It was, and again, I think that was a really nice thing about it. So it wasn't just a theatre show. We had the artwork, as you said, was just wonderful, and the lighting was fantastic. That really added into the atmosphere. And then we also had a composer and musician, Josh, and we had two wonderful dancers who shared the role of the goddess. So there was also a goddess in there. So it really did work on different levels, and some of it was also filmed as well. So yeah, it was a really interesting show to work on, and fingers crossed we're going to be touring it next year. We had some interest from a couple of different venues, so we're hoping to tour it and do it again.
Wow, how wonderful! But well, I imagine that'd be a chance for people to, like lazy people like myself, who didn't get up to see it, to see it. But how wonderful that will be! I imagine you're going to need quite specialised venues, aren't you, for that, like the Warwick Arts Centre and so on. But gosh, that would work. What you just described would work jolly well at Warwick Arts Centre, wouldn't it? Where you have that's only a lead in to say that I did notice on your credits that you have actually worked at the Warwick Arts Centre as well.
Yeah, and apparently it's the first production that was actually produced by Warwick Arts Centre.
Yeah, really? God.
Yeah, I was told that. I think that's right.
What was that? What was the piece you did there?
Oh, it was called Humans at Work, and it was about factory workers in Coventry in the sort of 1960s, 1970s. So the writer had gone to speak to some people within Coventry who had worked in factories at that time. Yeah, I mean, that was, again, it was an interesting piece to work on. Coventry is a place that I remember going to for the first time maybe 20 years ago and not being particularly impressed by it. And having been there a lot more recently, it's really growing and flourishing. And the play was very much about the fact that Coventry does seem to have been a city that has had its highs and lows. There was a reference to it at some point in the play about it sort of being like a falcon that rises out of the ashes. Yeah, I didn't realize that during that sort of 50s, 60s, 70s time, it really was a flourishing place. Lots going on there. So yeah, nice piece to work on. And again, I mean, it was one of those things whereby, had things been different in terms of the pandemic, it might have perhaps gone further, particularly with Coventry City of Culture. But yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that leads me to a very obvious place before we delve any deeper into the process, which I'm very intrigued to learn from as much as anything else, is do you ever turn things down? Does your agent suggest things to you and you say, I'm not going, that really, is it, I suppose you do you?
Yeah. I think when I first started working professionally, it was a case of you just went for everything.
Yes.
Now I'm a little bit more sort of choosy about what I do and what I don't do.
Yes, of course.
Obviously, if there's anything that doesn't ethically fit, then I'm not going to put myself forward for that. I mean, I wouldn't do a McDonald's ad, for example, something like that. I wouldn't
That's
go.
kind of where I was going, because you are very known amongst people who know something of you, or a little more of you know that you have very, very, if I may say, very passionate views about, animal rights and so on. So I imagine a lot of because I imagine a lot of your work is very ethically driven.
I try to, absolutely. I mean, it does, to be honest with you, it does sometimes make things hard. I mean, it's a difficult career to make work from a financial perspective anyhow. And it's so up and down as to whether or not you get work. So the temptation to put yourself forward for everything is certainly there. But yeah, I mean, there are just certain things I couldn't do. I wouldn't be able to do myself. So yeah, anything like McDonald's, I couldn't put myself forward for. No. And I've got a fantastic agent who, she's very strong in terms of things have got to feel right, and she right. Like myself, thinks long term. So if I put myself forward for something and I didn't feel good about it, I think that would come out in terms of the performance, and that's not good. You don't want anybody to see something that doesn't look right anyhow. And so she's always been really understanding in terms of, yeah, I'm not going to put you forward for this. I know you're not going to be happy with that.
I suppose it's one of the huge benefits of having an agency that you clearly get on with. If this has been a long-term relationship, which it seems as if it has, that she will filter, I imagine, or they will filter for you things that aren't going to give you enhance your integrity, I suppose.
She's I really lucked out, actually. So I was sort of at a point where I was starting to look at agents, and I'd talked to a lot of actors, and I'd heard some things that were troubling in terms of the way in which sometimes actors can be treated by their agents. I remember talking to one actor who said that she'd been trying to speak to her agent for the last sort of 3 months and had never had a call returned, had no response to their emails, etc. So I remember being very sort of, how do I go about this? How do I find somebody who I can work with and who I respect? And I saw an ad for a casting training session. So it wasn't too far away. It was in Kenilworth, and it was a casting director who was running a sort of 2-hour workshop to help you understand how the process worked and what casting directors are looking for. And it was run by Talisman Talent, my agents. And so I went along to this workshop, and they saw me in the workshop and said, we'd like to meet with you to talk about representing you. And so I went and met them for a coffee, and really liked them. They both had children who had worked in the business, so they had experience of what it was like from an actor's perspective. And they were very focused on working in partnership with actors rather than sort of this idea of your actor works for you. And so I joined them, and it's been a really good relationship.
What a moment that must have been when you had a call to say we'd like to discuss it further. How exciting that must have been. So they kind of I was going to ask about how you found your agent. This is the step that people thinking about going into it, I find one of the many, I guess, from talking to the few people I know who've done this, finding your agent is the biggest step, or biggest first step at any rate, for turning passion into reality. And the hardest one, I suppose, it's as hard getting into a good agency as it is getting into a good play.
It is. I mean, the whole thing of becoming a professional actor is it's very chicken and egg in a lot of ways. So I didn't go to drama school, so I can't talk about that route. But for me, it was a case of I really had to understand how to go about it. And so I quickly kind of cottoned on, okay, I need to get headshots. But then in order to get an agent, you really need to get on Spotlight. And to get on Spotlight, you need 4 professional credits.
Really?
So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So you're kind of, okay, well, I need an agent to get work, but I need to get on Spotlight to get an agent. So how do I go about it? And you have to be creative, and you really have to sort of do your research. You've got to keep looking every day for different castings. And I mean, I did some student films, which I really enjoyed doing. I worked with some great people, and I managed to get some footage together in order to get my show reel together. And through that, I was able to get my 4 professional credits to be able to get onto Spotlight.
Right.
And actually, it wasn't very long after I got onto Spotlight that I met with Talisman, that I went to that work. So it all,
Wow.
you know, I was lucky.